Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of YMTGT Taps. I'm Joey Pasco.
I'm Bighead Joe, back in our normal order of introductions.
Absolutely. So we have a lot to talk about this week. Quite a few topics. Joe, did you want to start things off with the first thing on our list?
Yeah. So unfortunately, y'all, for those of you who didn't hear, February 15th, we lost Jeff Zandi. Zan Man, the leader of the Texas Guild Mages, the man who had been running the longest weekly game of Magic the Gathering in history since 1996. They've been meeting every Tuesday night, practicing limited. And I was really excited. I know I mentioned it on the show a bunch of times. Zandy's been on the show a bunch of times. But I was really excited about, getting back over there and practicing with him. And I'll tell you, there's nobody in this world who would want to play sealed with me as much as he did. Every time, me and sealed, Joey, I love sealed. And I know a lot of people don't. But anytime I'd be like, hey, man, you want to practice some sealed? Zan would be like, yeah, let's do it. I said, well, we did the last night we hung out. I got over there early. And we got together and we played sealed. We built sealed pools. I have his sealed pool registered. He filled out his deck list and everything because that's what we did. That's how we practiced. We put the sealed pools together, build a deck, take it apart, reorganize the pool, and then rebuild it and just compare lists and play games. And it was just good, intense practice. And he was the one guy who could keep me sharp and limited. And I've been saying on this podcast how terrible I've been at limited since I started back up on Arena. I was like, okay, well, Zandy's going to get me sharp, and, he dropped me off from his house a couple weeks ago. And, I was like, hey man, let's, you're going out of town, you're doing any of these long road trips to go to PPTQs or whatever they're called now. Let me know. Let's do it. Let's do these trips, but,
right.
Unfortunately, went and took a trip that he can only take himself, So I'm frankly devastated. I've barely even played Magic or looked at Magic in the last 2 weeks. But I've been following along for the most part. It's just I don't even know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a huge loss to Magic. I mean, I didn't know Jeff. You knew him very well. And you got to, hang out with him and learn from him and just have a lot of great experiences with him. And that's awesome. And it sucks that, Texas Magic and Magic as a whole has lost someone of this magnitude. And I don't think people realize how just a big a part Jeff played in just the history of the game. And like you said, from all the way back in 96, like the first Pro Tour, his roots go deep and his branches spread wide, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of people that were affected by him. You wrote a really beautiful tribute to Jeff on Legit MTG. We'll link that in the show notes. And
Thanks.
So really a big loss for the community.
If, anyone who can, please make a donation in Jeff's honor to the Hunter Burton Memorial Open. It's hunterburtonmemorialopen.com. It's an event that Jeff started. The first one was in 2014, and it's an event to spread awareness about suicide because Hunter Burton committed suicide
in 2013, I think.
2013, I think, yeah, in July of 2013. And Jeff started this thing in his teammates' honor, his friends' honor, and there's going to be some things going on in Jeff's honor. There's going to be something going on with one of the Channel Fireball events. I can't remember which. And also, I think the Sunday of the Hunter Burton Memorial Open, there's going to be a memorial, Chaos Sealed event or Chaos Draft or something like that. Limited, of course,
Right.
I just can't even believe he's gone, man. It's horrible. Anyway, so like I said, make a donation there in Jeff's honor, the HunterBurtonMemorialOpen.com, because that was something Jeff loved, and Jeff loved us as players, and Jeff loved Hunter, and Jeff, all he wanted to do was honor Hunter, and
it's a pretty big event. I think a lot of people, if they haven't heard of Jeff, they've very likely still heard of the Hunter Burton Memorial. So I think it's kind of gotten a lot of I don't want to say buzz, but I guess that's the right word. A lot of people have heard of it, and they might not know that Jeff had such a huge part in creating it. And also Jeff was a guest on a couple of episodes of Taps when I wasn't on the show, when it was you and Steven.
He was on the last episode.
Yeah, he was.
Ended.
We ended, quote unquote, the final episode.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so you can go back and check out those episodes if you want to listen to some of Jeff's wisdom.
Yeah, just skip over all my GoFundMe begging. But anyway,
that's right. You retired.
Yeah, shut up. So I guess let's move on as hard as it is.
Right.
Let's keep on spreading our love of Magic, because Jeff loved Magic, and Jeff would want the love of Magic to be spread by anyone left behind,
Yep.
So anyway, we had the first Mythic Championship this weekend in Cleveland, and first of all, it was Brian David Marshall's last event on coverage, which is a big deal because Brian's been a part of Magic coverage forever, right?
Yeah. And he's moving on to some other opportunity. He got another job or something. He's going to leave coverage, and this was his last event. He kind of let everybody know about a week ago, and I think the response from the community has been pretty overwhelming in terms of just how much he will be missed. And the whole coverage team did a great job this weekend, and BDM, it was quite a send-off, I think. I'm hoping at some point he comes back, at least occasionally, and I guess I wouldn't say that would be unlikely, but I have no inside information as far as what he's actually moving on to do, that he decided he couldn't do Magic coverage anymore. But
next week he's going to show up on WCW TV. He's going to be on Monday Nitro.
You're not supposed to say anything. I just said we don't have insider knowledge.
Dropping the Pro Tour title into the trash can on live TV. It's all been a work. But yeah, good luck in whatever you do next, BDM, because
we love you.
Yeah, dude, and it's going to be really awesome and really hard to replace you. You know,
we're going to miss you for sure.
So first of all,
or like second or third of all,
ninth of all, let me say how awesome it is that Autumn Burchett won the Pro Tour. They were playing the mono blue tempo deck. 3 of those decks made the top 8. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
My count is right.
Yep. It's 3.
Yeah. This is a deck that in the first week of me playing Arena, I kept going up against this deck. And in our show notes, like early on, because we just created this big master file show notes, and like I've just been dropping ideas in there for episodes or whatever. And I was like, mono blue. I was like, is this a real deck? Is this a thing? Like, is this actually a deck, or is this some weird, like, best of one trash?
Right. So somebody opened the precon, it's the mono blue precon or something.
Yeah. Like, I just had no idea because I just didn't know what the metagame was. But I was like, this deck, this can't be real, right? Like, you're playing a 1/1 and then putting an enchantment on it, like we're supposed like auras are bad, right? We're not supposed to play auras, right? But obviously, with this deck taking 3 out of the top 8 spots on the first Mythic Championship, we all knew. I found out quickly it was a real deck, but this just shows this deck's rise to prominence, right? Because I don't think it's ever been represented in such big numbers in a top 8, right?
You're right. So I think just the last couple weeks have been sort of the acknowledgement from the majority of competitive players that, okay, this is a good enough deck to play at events. Now it goes all the way back to Gabe Nassif playing it in a GP back in the summer, I think, pretty sure it was before Guilds of Ravnica was released. So, it's been a known part of the metagame for a while, but I don't know that anyone took it seriously until, maybe when Gabe Nassif was playing it, but maybe some people thought, it's Gabriel Nassif. He can kind of take any deck and do well with it. So,
right.
It was still kind of on the fringes, but yeah, the last few weeks it's been popping up everywhere. I believe it won. Did it win in Dallas? I think. Or it showed up a lot in Baltimore for the Star City events. I thought it won in Dallas actually, but I might be. Yeah, I think because I know Jody Keith played Rakdos and ended up winning. I think he top 8'd in Dallas, or he did well in Dallas, and then he won the GP the following week. So with Rakdos, so I know Rakdos didn't win the previous week. I think that was the mono blue deck. But yeah, so it's been around, and now people know to take it seriously. It's really crazy. This is something I posted on Twitter. Who would have predicted that we're 2 sets deep into a Ravnica standard,
right?
And 5 of the top 8 decks in the Mythic Championship are monocolored, essentially monocolored. You have the 3 mono blue decks, and then you have what is essentially mono red with splashing green sideboard cards, and mono white splashing blue sideboard cards. These are monocolored decks with like a sideboard splash.
This is like the 3rd visit to Ravnica. Isn't this one called Ravnica, City of Basic Lands?
Yeah, that must be it.
So this is this is that set. So
maybe
obviously.
I shouldn't be so surprised. But look at this, like. Think about the decks I just mentioned. Mono blue, you have Tempest Djinn. Mono white, you have Benalish Marshall. Mono red, you have Goblin Chain Whirler. Look at the effect of those cards on standard. The green one, Steel Leaf Champion, didn't make top 8, but you still see it a lot when anybody's playing any kind of like stompy deck. The only one that doesn't see play is like the black one, which I forgot the name of because it doesn't see play. I actually had it open in my on my phone the other day too, because I was like, what's the black one do? It's like Dreadshade or something. Yeah, no, it's called Dreadshade. Yeah, have you ever even heard of this card?
It's not Dark Prophecy?
No.
That was my triple black pet card back in the day.
Yeah, well, back in the day of the Dominaria set that came out last April, this was the black part of this cycle. And
what is it even called again?
Dreadshade. So it's a 3/3 for black, creature shade, and it has pay a black, Dreadshade gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's kind of like an Nantuko Shade, which of course was really strong back in 2002. Nantuko Shade being black for a 2/1 that has that ability, the pay a black to get +1/+1. So Dreadshade just not good enough.
I just figured out why this card hasn't been represented as much as the other ones, because it's terrible.
Well, yeah. The art's really good.
It's very flavorful.
Yeah.
So don't call the episode that, because we already did that once.
Okay, good call.
So Autumn's win is amazing because not only is it their first Pro Tour win, but it's a monumental moment for representation in Magic.
Absolutely.
Because Autumn is the first transgender non-binary winner of a Pro Tour. And that's huge. That's a really awesome thing. I was so worried when I saw that Autumn was going to win, because we weren't a podcast. We weren't an active podcast when this whole Magic Gate and blah, 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 blah thing happened. So I never really had a chance to address it, but I saw that from a distance and kind of got the impression, unfortunately, that the Magic community had gone to a really, really dark place. And a segment, turns out a small, loud segment of the community had, right? Mm-hmm. I think that Wizards has done a really great job of, first of all, they banned blah, 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 blah for life. I'm not going to mention his name because he's absolutely not worth mentioning by name. Banned him for life for being garbage. Distance themselves immediately from any sort of solidarity with this garbage movement of garbage people. But, from a distance, and like I said, they're the loudest people, I really started to think like that the community had gone in a bad way. But one of the things I like to do on Twitter especially is I like to find things that would attract these garbage humans, such as a transgender person winning the Pro Tour, right? Mythic, whatever. And I like to go through and find those people and block them, because I don't need those people in my life. I don't need to look at if you have something so vile to say about anyone, then you're not even worth. You're not welcome in my conversation anymore. You're out of my internet. You're gone. Simple as that. I do it all the time. And so I was very pleased that I did not find very much, actually, I honestly didn't see any negativity. It was universal acclaim for Autumn. And I was so happy for them, because that's just great. Like I'm happy to see that whatever garbage was there, I either successfully blocked already, or just knows that they're not welcome in our community and they are not being vocal anymore. Or they've gone back underground where they belong, whatever. But I did, and I've been saying this to Joey since the start of this podcast, when we started this podcast back up, that I kind of wanted to address something, and I wanted him to get his hand on the edit button here, because we are a clean show. And it really starts with a quote from Kurt Cobain, because the 20th was would have been Kurt Cobain's 52nd birthday, and on his birthday, this quote came back up on Twitter, and I just wanted to quote it in full. The language is a little dated, as a quote from the 90s, but I wanted to echo the sentiment of this quote, which is very clear. And I just wanted to make sure. Look, I just want to make sure that we are clearly on the right side of this whole thing. This is the quote from Kurt. Okay, if any of you in any way hate homosexuals, people of a different color, or women, please do this one favor for us: leave us the alone. Don't come to our shows and don't buy our records. And I'll expand that quote to say, don't listen to our podcast. Don't interact with us on Twitter. You're not welcome in the conversation anymore. And it's your fault for being terrible people. This whole, the thing lately, that was a very brief blip. This person trying to latch on to hatred online. I think they quickly got embarrassed out of our community and they got banned for life. So good. But there's this whole Comicsgate thing that's going on right now. I don't know if you're very familiar with that. I know you're not super involved, but I'm sure you've at least seen some of the stuff I've retweeted about that over time. But Comicsgate is just a thing that's just trying to it's just a harassment campaign. It's a hatred campaign, hating on people of color, hating on the LGBT community, just hating on everyone that isn't white, straight, male, essentially. And if you're someone who follows that campaign, turn this podcast off. Right now, I don't even want you to ever listen to us again. We don't need your downloads. We don't need your money. We don't need your support. We don't need your likes. We don't need you. Go away. That's all I have to say. That's that's basically all I have to say about it. I want to move on. But I'm very happy for Autumn. We are all Knights of Autumn now, and we are in your humble service. So,
congratulations to Autumn. The play was masterful. I was able to watch a lot more coverage this weekend than I had in the past, and it was just incredible to watch Autumn pilot this deck. And I think it's probably the hardest deck to pilot in Standard, and it's just a clinic on how to pilot mono blue. So congratulations, and we're just, I think, like you said, it's a big moment for Magic.
It really is. Now, some stuff about the event itself. I did not get to watch hardly any coverage at all. But you watched a lot of the coverage, which is awesome. And I know you were talking about one card in particular that you were kind of excited to see.
Yeah, so one of the top 8 decks was Esper. And, Esper's kind of been one of the top few decks over the course of the Ravnica Allegiance metagame. And but one card that popped up in Esper sideboards is Kaya Orzhov Usurper, which most people that kind of had dismissed the 3-mana Planeswalkers, or really all of the Planeswalkers from Ravnica Allegiance have kind of seen very little to no play. But that was a card that we just didn't expect to see. Shows up in the sideboards. It does great against these decks with so many 1-drops like Mono Blue. It just so happened that I played against it on Arena last week, and I was so excited when this happened. I'm texting Joe. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just lost to Kaya. And it was like the coolest thing to have happen playing Standard. I totally dismissed it. It was an Esper mirror. They've got Teferi, and I'm prioritizing dealing with Teferi. So I'm like, I've got my Vraska's Contempt hitting Teferi. I've got my Teferi tucking their Teferi, things like that. Completely ignoring Kaya, kind of seeing like, okay, great, they can -5 and drain me for however many cards they exiled. It's going to take forever for them to exile 20 cards. Yeah, they exiled 11 cards and then -5 twice and just killed me. And I totally didn't see it coming. They did it the one turn, and I'm like, all right, fine. I'm at like 11 because I'd gained a little bit of life off of Vraska's Contempt or Absorb or whatever. And so I'm like, great, I'm at 11, whatever. And I take my turn and I pass back and they activate it. And I'm like, oh, wait, they had enough loyalty to do that twice. So I know it's not,
it's not exile those cards. It deals that damage. They stick around and you can do it again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you lose life equal to, or they drain you for the number of cards you have in exile. So that counts when they Vraska's Contempt your Teferi. Yep. Well, that's another damage too. So they didn't.
It's not just from Kaya.
Exactly. It's just whatever cards you have in exile.
Syncopate.
Right. Devious Cover Up, all kinds of ways that you can exile things. And I just think, that ability is stronger than I realized. And it's especially strong when you pay no attention to it. So yeah. I don't want to be like all, excited about Kaya in the sense that like, wow, this card is awesome. I'm going to play 4 of it and, anything like that. But because I think as long as you're aware of it, now that that's happened to me, I'm not letting that happen again if I can help it. But it was really amusing to see, to have that happen. And it was cool to see it actually showing up in the Pro Tour as well. I kind of expected, I saw it on Arena. I thought it was just somebody who was trying this card. And I was like, that was cool. Didn't expect to see it at the Pro Tour, but it showed up in multiple Esper sideboards. Can I say also, while we're talking about Esper makes me hate Magic.
Yeah, you have that in the show notes, and I'm like, but Joey, like Esper is in your lifeblood.
Yeah, so you'd think that Esper. I've been playing Esper Control on Arena, and it is the most frustrating deck to play with, because of the mana base, because I feel like I've either got all the lands to cast my Kaya's Wrath, but no Kaya's Wrath, or I'm holding like 2 copies of Kaya's Wrath, a Cry of the Carnarium, and only have a single black. And I'm like, it is the most frustrating deck I've ever played in Magic.
No, I hear that. For me, like the Phoenix deck that I was messing with before I decided to go without the Phoenixes was the same thing. It wasn't lands and spells. It was spells and spells. I was like, I have 3 Phoenixes and I just peeled one off of Light Up the Stage, and
yeah,
and I have no Tormenting Voices to speak of, or I've got 3 Tormenting Voices and I'm discarding Tormenting Voice to Tormenting Voice, and then discarding Tormenting Voice to Tormenting Voice, and then off the second Tormenting Voice I draw a Phoenix.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's what it feels like. I mean, right now, especially on Arena, the metagame is so aggressive. In Best of One, especially on Best of One in particular. And that's what I've been playing most of, because I've been playing so many decks. And I'll get into that. I mean, maybe I'll get into it in a minute, but I'll get into it later, I think, more likely. But just on Arena, you have all these aggressive decks that are going to punish you for stumbling. So, I feel like playing Esper in Best of One is probably not a good idea, but I want to play it. I like the idea. I like the deck when it works, I guess. I love the deck when it works. I love being able to cast.
When it works.
Yeah. I guess I love the deck when I'm able to cast my spells. When I'm able to play my cards, it is just incredibly frustrating to be sitting there and going, well, you know, I have the cards. I've got the spells, but I can't cast them. And I don't know. It makes me I don't get tilted over anything as much as I get tilted over playing Esper Control in the current standard. So that's all. It's just kind of funny. And
I've been playing that mono red Phoenix list that I put together for the GP, and I don't think it was a very good. It wasn't a GP I played in. It was the Star City Games Open.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was a great choice for best of 3 paper Magic. I had no trouble operating the deck. But I really do feel like it's a best of 1 deck because the sideboarding options get so good against it. It's one of those decks you can kind of surprise people with. Get a win and get out. Because I won a lot of game 1s and I lost a lot of games 2 and 3. So that was one of the problems. But with that deck, playing it in best of 1, the mono red Phoenix list deck, it makes me hate Magic when I lose at Magic.
Yeah.
So. Sorry. No, but really though, honestly, if this mono blue deck is a deck that's going to be all over best of 1 now because it won the Mythic Championship, the Phoenixless deck is awesome. That deck eats the mono blue deck for breakfast because that deck is like, I've got dive down. I'm going to protect my creature. And I go, face, you're dead. And they go, oh, I countered 1 spell, but I took 3 damage from your creatures from the spell I countered. And you still get to do all your other things and you still just win.
Mono white is also really, really good because that's the deck I've had the most success with on Arena is mono white. And yeah, you're just like drop a whole bunch of 1-drops, and they're like, here's this 1-drop, and here's a Curious Obsession. I'm like, sure, great, whatever.
The list that Steven's playing is so cool,
and that's the deck that I've actually specifically Steven's list. He shared it on Twitter last week, and I tried it out, and that's the list I've stuck with, for the last week, and that's what I've had the most success with. It cuts History of Benalia to really max out on 1-drops and Unbreakable Formation, and it's really, I'm loving it. In best of 1, it's not right for best of 3, but in best of 1, it's really performing really well for me.
Do not sue us, please.
I am loving it, though. Why don't we go ahead, because we are kind of on the topic of Arena. I have this kind of how Arena has kind of changed Magic for me. And
yes,
I not to give more kudos to Arena. We complain about Arena a lot, too, so I guess I shouldn't really say it like that. There's a lot of good that Arena has brought to the game, and I think a lot of people are aware of it. But it's completely changed the way I play Magic now. I pretty much only play Arena. I'm playing now more than I ever have in my life. I'm trying more decks than I've ever had in my life, and that's a good thing and a bad thing because I used to really be able to zero in on one kind of archetype and say, okay, yeah, I like the control decks. I'm going to build Esper and blue-white, and those are I don't need to worry about getting the Arclight Phoenixes or, the Goblin Chain Whirlers or the Benedict Marshals. I don't need to worry about getting these other rares and mythics. I can focus on just these ones that I'm going to play. But Arena has made it was pretty genius, the fact that they give you, they make you build your collection whether you want to or not, meaning, you open these packs and you can't get rid of the cards. So it's like, well, wait a second, I've opened all these packs while I've been playing these other decks. Well, now I have, I have 3 Hydroid Krasis that I just opened in packs, and I have a Jade Light Ranger, and, I can easily get all the commons and uncommons, and you start looking and going, well, I'm really not that far off from having a Sultai deck, and I'm going to play Sultai. And so you start, playing with that deck, and it's happening for like every deck.
What's the 5/4 for 3 green? What's that called?
Steel Leaf Champion.
Steel Leaf Champion. Yeah, I opened one of those in a Dominaria pack the other day. I was like, ooh, I got another one of those. And I was like, cool, I'm getting closer to building that mono green deck. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I would not like, and I think a lot of times for me, for constructed Magic in paper, collecting the cards is a big reason why I won't play certain decks, because I don't want to build every deck because it's expensive for one, cards rotate for two, and you don't even know if you're going to like that deck, you know?
Right.
And so like when you're paying real money at a time to get singles for a deck, and then you get the deck and you're like, I didn't like it that much. You're like, oh, I cannot believe I spent that much money. Well, I can sell these cards back for half, you know?
Or try to trade them away, things like that.
And it feels like you've lost money. Where if you're, you know, spending real money to get mythical gems, and then you trade those mythical gems for magical packs, and you open those magical packs and get magical cards, you're so far removed from your money that it doesn't feel like you spent money anymore. And so it's more encouraging to be able to, oh, well, crap, I could build a, you know, Rakdos deck. All I need is a couple blood crypts. Oh, I got some rare card craft. Because what did those rare cards cost? We'll get into that in another episode, but it's not $0, but it sure does feel like it by the time it gets to a rare wild card. So, you know, so you're encouraged to build things you wouldn't normally play, and you're encouraged to play decks you wouldn't normally build. And then if you do well with a deck you wouldn't normally play, then you might change your entire deck deck selection philosophy. You know, you might start to look at things from the control player's side. You might go, man, you know, like I didn't like playing control, or I didn't like playing against control, but I also was never going to build it because of that mana base. But I wound up with that mana base just from opening packs.
Right.
And now I've got these cards. Well, let me try slapping a control deck together. You go, oh, wow, you know, control kind of fits my style. And you're like, okay, maybe I'll slip into this. You know, I haven't gotten there yet with building control at least, but it is like literally at the forefront of my mind in terms of what I want to do on Arena in the near future is to start building decks that I wouldn't normally build in paper because I have the resources to do so.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, is this idea of making us keep all of the cards in our collection and not be allowed to dust them, or whatever the term is that you want to use, where you have these cards and that's it, you have them. I mean, so you're kind of incentivized to use them. I know I took a photo of all the decks I have built and I sent it to you. So here it is. So just to run down a quick list, I have Bad Sultai, and it's bad because I don't have a full mana base. I've opened so many packs of Ravnica Allegiance and have yet to open a breeding pool. I don't understand how that's even possible, but we got like Bad Sultai, Mono Blue Tempo, Rakdos Judith, Gruul Midrange, Mono White Best of 1, White Weenie, which is of course Best of 3, Esper Control, Mono Red Frenzy, Rakdos Theater, Bant Flash, Jeskai Control, so yeah, Azorius Control, Cinder Red. So I'm like building different versions of some of these decks. I've got like multiple Mono Red decks that have like a couple cards that are different. Like one plays Flames of Keld, another one plays Risk Factor, another one plays Cinder Vines and splashes green. Things like that. So like I'm playing all these different versions of essentially the same deck. It really just gives you a way to test out all these different decks because you just have most of the cards. And I just think that's kind of awesome. The other thing that it did for me is it actually, watching coverage, I've always rooted for certain players and certain decks. And a lot of times I would root for the deck above the player. And I've mentioned this in past podcasts. It can be a player I like, but if they're playing a deck I don't really like and their opponent is playing, a control deck, I'm rooting against the player I like because I'd rather see the deck that I like win. Right. And strangely, I guess because of this experience on Arena, I felt like every match I was watching with interest because I'm like, I've played both of these decks. Like I want to watch both of them, and I'm not even really rooting for one or the other. And that was how I felt. You see this top 8 and it's amazing. And I'm like, pretty much like, I don't care who wins. I like all of these players. I like all of these decks. Well, kind of. I actually really dislike Mono Blue, and I have not figured out why. Playing against it and with it. But other than that, I I really felt like it's still a great deck to watch, and I still do play it. I think I just play it wrong, so I don't like playing it myself.
I'm gonna say that because despite our philosophy of make 'em have it, especially with Autumn's list, they look like they always had it.
Yeah.
4 dive down, 3 spell pierce, 2 essence capture, 1 main deck negate, and the full set of wizards retorts.
Yeah.
You know, like that's a lot of having it.
You're right. It is really frustrating to play against because you're like, they have a creature, like an evasive creature that really doesn't do much, right? You got like a 1/1 flyer, and it could be Terramander, it can be Siren Storm Tamer, or you can have the Mistcloak Herald that's not a flyer but is unblockable. You've got an evasive creature. It feels very innocuous, but then you put Curious Obsession on it, and you protect it, and it just becomes super frustrating because you're like, all right, I get to trade my removal spell for a dive down. All right, I get to trade my sweeper for a spell pierce. You know, oh, okay, I'll put out, you know, something that's going to deal with this. Oh, there's Wizard's Retort. It just feels like they always have it, and they always do because of Curious Obsession.
Right. And I feel like the frustration is in the fact that the deck is essentially doing what we've been told we should never do, which is play creatures with auras. You know, like, and because I'm like, oh, it's just a 1/1 with a stupid aura on it. I can totally kill that. I should be able to kill that. I deserve to kill that. No, you don't, because they have a plan beyond just put the enchantment on the creature. You know, they've got a backup plan. They know what your plan is. Oh, I saw that 2 for 1. Nuh-uh, they got 2 for 1. You know, like, so I don't know. Maybe that's it. I'm just trying to figure it out for myself. But while we're back on the topic, because I wanted to back up to what you were saying about the Cinder Vines, right? Mm-hmm. I was really excited. How do you say Alex's last name? Because you were watching coverage. You would know.
Who are Alex who?
Malatin.
Oh, Alex Majlaton. Sure.
Alex Majlaton's Gruul Aggro list. I saw Gruul Aggro, and I was like, oh, cool. So, you know, which Gruul creature? None. No Gruul creatures. I was like, oh, huh? I was like, no, this is mono red. And then I looked at the sideboard. I was like, 4 Cinder Vines. Aha. And you notice this is the only mono red aggro deck that make the top 8 or even really, I feel, to do very well, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and I think that the Cinder Vines is a huge reason why, because that card is so good. And these decks were not represented in Dallas. Not a single red deck made day 2. Mono red, anyways, did not make day 2 in Dallas, or at least a mono red main deck like this. And this deck also did not have Skewer the Critics, which is interesting to note.
Yeah, and he brought back Experimental Frenzy.
Yep.
So kind of going a little itty bit bigger, you know, going to, you know, to the point where you're spending 4 mana on 1 spell is kind of, you know, not something you see a lot out of the red decks, or not that we have seen recently.
Right.
Yeah, that I was really rooting for Alex. He's actually a Maryland player.
Yes.
Known for playing Affinity, where it is legal. So,
right.
But yeah.
But it makes me want to try Cinder Vines, though, because I'm like, okay, maybe that's the thing that the mono red deck is missing to be competitive again.
Yeah.
Because I really feel like this deck is not competitive again or not competitive anymore in its original form of just mono red. I don't feel like it is.
Yeah.
So like I've been frustrated by that because I like that deck and I have it in paper, and there you go. You know, like it's like one of the, like there's my 1 paper deck, feels irrelevant. So, you know, frustrating.
Yeah. So let's move on, and we still have like quite a few things I think to talk about. Briefly, let's touch on this new Mulligan rule. That is. Go ahead.
The first thing I want to point out is that the only reason they did not try this at this
Mythic Championship
is because they didn't want it to be the Cleveland Mulligan. Because you got the Paris Mulligan, which they first tried out in Paris, hence the name. So they were like, Cleveland Mulligan? Let's wait till we get to London.
You know, it was their decision to put the Magic Championship in Cleveland, so they could have avoided that in the first place.
Well, you know, Cleveland is a fine place to have a tournament, just not a fine place to name your Mulligan after.
That's fair. So, yeah, the next Modern or next Mythic Championship is Modern, and it's in London. So it will, if it becomes an actual new Mulligan rule, if they actually decide to go forward with it, it will be the London Mulligan. But the idea is, instead of drawing one less card, you draw up to 7 every time you mulligan, but then you put some number of cards on the bottom of your deck equal to the number of mulligans you've taken. So you still end up with the same number of cards. You still mulligan to 5, quote unquote, but you get to choose those 5 out of 7 cards. And there's no more scrying. So I think my understanding is that they've tested this internally in Standard, but have not done much testing with it for older formats like Modern or Legacy or Vintage. And those are going to be the formats that kind of make or break things.
I'm frankly very surprised because I did not realize that this was going to be a Modern Mythic Championship they were testing this at. And I'm actually kind of glad, because if they tested this, I feel like this would be great in Standard.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I
feel
think
like
it will
this would
too.
be fine. And I think that if they tested it in Standard, it would definitely be the new Mulligan.
Yeah, and so I think that's what it is. They tested it for Standard, and they felt like, okay, this is fine in Standard. Let's see what the players can do with it in Modern. Let's go ahead and make it, make this our test run in a format that can break it if it's going to be broken.
Yeah, give it to the pros. Let them break it. Let's see how broken it gets.
Yeah.
They're not going to complain about playing broken games of Magic. That's what they're there to do. So
the thing is, this, of course, incentivizes very aggressive and combo-based decks.
Yes.
Because you don't necessarily need card quantity. You just need certain, combinations of cards. And you're going to be able to capitalize on an early advantage better than a deck like a control deck, which is kind of like wants the quantity of cards and wants to be able to get card advantage and 2-for-1s and things like that, and wants the game to go long. So it'll be interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in London. I kind of feel like this might be a situation where they determine it isn't good for Modern, and at that point, I don't know if they will have a different Mulligan rule for different formats. I believe they said in the video or in the weekly MTG show that they have, that they weren't considering using it for different Mulligan rules for different formats. But I still think that's possibly up in the air. I guess we'll see. And I think that's in July. It feels like it's a few months away, so we won't have any real data on it until then.
April 26th. Yeah, April 26th to 28th. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what I saw that was
July
but
is Barcelona. That's Mythic Championship 4. I have this pulled up here for the next part.
But the bad thing is, and I think I've seen some people tweeting about this, is that there's no way to test for this championship outside of paper, because you can't do it on Arena. You can't test for Modern on Arena already. So it's like, okay, I'm going to play Magic Online. Well, that Mulligan rule isn't programmed into Magic Online, so you can't test it. You can't test for this Mulligan, this new Mulligan rule outside of paper, and that really stinks, because I think a lot of players, get a lot of their testing done online, and I hope that they change that.
Modern players? You mean the same players that are worried about Magic going digital because of Arena are upset that they have to play paper Magic too? So what do you want? You got to pick one.
We want everything.
Well, yeah, you want both, and you've got both. But guess what? Win-win. You get to play more paper Magic, which is what you want, because you don't want Magic to move away from paper. There's a lot of people who don't want Magic to move away from paper. I'm honestly not one of them. I could take or leave paper Magic myself. 100% honest. And I understand the downsides of that. I understand the loss of the social aspect. I understand all of those things, but I'm 37 and I'm doing school. I work. You've got a family. We've got other interests. I like sitting on my computer and firing up games of Magic for an hour or two. I like not having to take a bus 12 hours to go play in Albuquerque. Even though those are fun trips, I like having the option of staying home and still having a chance to qualify for the Mythic Championship. But so anyway, my attachment to paper is very nostalgic, but it's not like if they said tomorrow we're not printing cards anymore, I'd be bummed, but I'd still be playing digitally, and like that would mean that digital got like more support, and I'd be pretty happy with that. With the extra support to digital, that's a whole other rabbit hole that we don't need to go down right now. But
yeah, and frankly, I haven't even thought deeply. I haven't thought about this at all because I just don't think paper Magic is going anywhere. So it's not even something
at all. But there's a lot of people who feel like some of these steps are baby steps towards the big step. You know,
right?
These are acclimating us to the eventual demise of paper Magic, which some people do think that, but some people do think the sky is falling every single time that little Wizards logo comes up on daily MTG, you know? So, and it's not. The sky is not falling. Everything's fine. So we are told and must believe.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, this is what they're doing in London. They're going to let the sky fall a little bit, but if they have to put it back up, they'll put it back up.
Yeah.
Speaking of the sky falling, just because why not? One of the things they did make a response, like an official announcement about the coverage changes, and we briefly discussed this last episode. As many people know, Wizards has kind of dropped coverage for Grand Prix. In a video released that we're going to link, and we're going to talk about in a minute, they mentioned that they're going to work with Channel Fireball to cover select Grand Prix. And of course, they'll have all the Mythic Championships covered. But otherwise, there are more ways to watch now than ever. And you can just load up Twitch and watch random people stream if you want to watch Magic coverage. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. I feel like a little bit irritated at the way that they did that. This kind
of the coverage of premium Grand Prix. That's such a dumb joke. I'm sorry. Select premium.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Star City joke.
Sorry. Yes.
No,
but the premium Grand Prix are behind a paywall.
So that's the thing is, I feel like, fine. If you want to watch Magic, you can just load up Twitch. You're right. Fine. I can do that. Go do that. And the NFL can say, oh, if you want to watch football, just go load up Twitch and watch people play Madden. I mean, sure, we're just going to cover select regular season games and then the playoffs. You know, like, are you serious? Like, I don't want to watch. I mean, I love a lot of different streamers. There are a lot of players streaming. Right. There are a lot of people that stream that I have no idea who they are, but if they're the only one streaming at the time that I find, you know, and it looks interesting, I'll watch it. But that's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as tuning into a
streamer once in a while, because otherwise, how would I get viewers?
That's not the same thing as knowing that, oh wow, this weekend is this, you know, Grand Prix event. It's modern or it's standard, whatever it is. I'm interested. I want to watch it. I want to tune into coverage, you know, Saturday morning, and then maybe later Saturday afternoon if I get a chance, and then Sunday morning, you know, like when I have an opportunity, I can jump in and watch what's happening at the Grand Prix, like kind of following along on the story. Or I can watch one random person play Twitch and they say, hold on, I want to go to the bathroom, and oh, hold on a second, I'm, you know, getting a drink, and, you know, like this is not the same thing. I don't know why it's not. So them using that as the same.
Now, I like your point. I like your argument, but you know, a video game of football and the sport of football are two entirely different things. Where Magic in paper and online are essentially the exact same game, just played in different venues. I'm not siding with them. Okay, let me be very clear about
and it's
that,
not a perfect comparison.
I disagree with them. They should cover every Grand Prix because we should have coverage of every Grand Prix. Why have a Grand Prix if there's no coverage? I just don't understand it. Why have like a tournament series? There are stakes. Someone's making, you know, some people are making the Pro Tour, you know, and it's still happening even through, you know, the changes to the event structure. There's still going to be people making the Pro Tour. It's essentially a big qualifier event for your Mythic Championship, and there should be coverage of that. Not the small ones, not the store size ones, not store level, you know, but this is a city level thing. There should be coverage. I don't know. We should have video coverage of that.
Right. Well, that's the thing is like, you can't tell us this is a big, awesome event, a grand event, or, Magic Fest, whatever kind of grandiose term you want to use for it, and then be like, but it's not deserving of coverage.
I know.
Like,
it's like,
what is it?
It's just a regular Prix. And before you get to thinking about it, Joey, we already named an episode just a regular Prix.
Okay, good call.
I'm going to just try to work as many past show titles into the rest of this episode as I possibly can.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, so that's all. I just felt like I feel frustrated with that. I feel
hear
like
your cat.
You hear my cat? Yeah, my daughter is making some sounds downstairs, but it's frustrating. And the thing is, like, we complain a lot. I know. I complain a lot, but I feel like it's because of how much I love this game and how much of my life I've loved this game, and I want to see it succeed. I want it to be available. It's frustrating. So I complain. I say, like, wow, okay, I'm rolling my eyes at you, Wizards, because you do this or you don't do this, and I don't want to come off as like this ingrate, but I want to watch your game. Why are you doing this? Like, why are you taking it away?
Here's the thing. I don't watch much coverage, right? And I want this. I want this for you and for everyone else who does love coverage, who watches coverage as a way to stay connected to the Pro Tour, and not even the Pro Tour, but one level, because to me, a Grand Prix is exactly one level below the Pro Tour. Right. And it's like, okay, you could make an argument, okay, they don't show like, what's it called? I can't remember the league, the championship, I think is the second tier of like Premier League football, right? And then they don't show like minor league baseball on TV all that often. But this isn't TV we're talking about. This is, this is Twitch. This is online coverage. But it's an important thing to us because, again, this aspiration of making the Pro Tour is very real for a lot of people, myself included. And to see someone achieve that dream, especially someone who might not be qualified previously, shows us as players that we could do it too. Yeah. Encourages us to show up at a Grand Prix because there's a chance that you could be the one in that final on the coverage. You could be the one getting interviewed holding up that trophy. Like that is a big connection for a lot of people. That's the reason why a lot of people even bother, is because of that aspiration, and showing that aspiration become real for a player who maybe, has never played on the Pro Tour before is huge to keeping someone involved and keeping someone interested in that chase. And that was my biggest complaint all the way back to episode 1, was that this whole challenger distinction made it feel like you are an outsider. You are not coming in unless you jump through this series of complicated hoops. And by the way, the most surefire way of getting there, we're not showing you anymore. Like where you win a Grand Prix, top 16 a Grand Prix, you make the Pro Tour. We're not going to show you that anymore on coverage. You don't get to see that. It's more of it makes it feel less attainable. Right. And that's bad. Like that's bad for Magic. The Pro Tour needs to feel like something we can get to. And if the sooner it stops feeling like that, the sooner we're going to stop trying to get it. Yeah. Good point. And so like for that sake, I want to see coverage continue, even if I'm not watching it. I don't need that nudge, but someone might. Yeah. Yeah, we can move on just because I know we've spent a lot of time on it. We have a couple more things we want to talk about, and we're down to just probably another couple of minutes. So do you just want to briefly mention this next how to become the next Magic champion thing? Could you mention this briefly? Yeah. Do we have to do a second episode for this? Because speaking of hoops, I love the fact that they, first of all, in this announcement addressed it. Paragraph 2, challengers. That's what we're calling players dedicated to competing at the highest levels, but not in the Magic Pro League. So that's what we are. We are challengers. and we are going to challenge these folks. They're doing some stuff. Oh my God, hold on. Let me get my thoughts together. Because like I said, I'm just a little scrambled on this.
So my understanding is there are 7 Pro Tours, not now known as Mythic Championships.
Yes.
4 are in paper and 3 are online. Is that right? Or is it the reverse?
That's correct.
Okay.
4 paper, 3 arena.
Okay.
The 4 paper ones have a $500,000 prize pool, and the 3 arena ones have a $750,000 prize pool.
Okay.
Interesting that they would include that money or have so much extra money for the arena championships, but I don't know. So they finally told us how we're going to get there, and it's kind of the same way we used to. There are going to be Mythic Championship qualifiers in paper, and they are going to be basically like our old PTQ system. Like winner gets in is pretty much what it is. And so that's cool. They took 1 hoop away, which is very cool. I like that a lot. There's not going to be, or as far as I can tell here, there isn't going to be a way for arena players to qualify for a tabletop Mythic Championship. Am I mistaken in that? Like, I'm looking at this, and it really does look like there is a path from arena to the World Championships.
Okay.
But from what I'm gathering here, but I might be wrong. I don't know. It's a little convoluted.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of information in one article, and it's hard to kind of dissect it all and break it down.
So, you can qualify for the Arena Championship from placing well in the Mythic Championship.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Prior performance invites, right? But does that translate the other way? You see what I'm saying? Does a top 4 finish or something in the Arena Mythic Championship qualify you for a Mythic Championship 4?
Right.
In tabletop. I'm not clear. I would like to know that. I would like to see that if it isn't.
Right. Yeah.
I would like to see them go both ways in terms of one qualifies for the other and vice versa. But we do now have a more clear idea of how the Arena Mythic Championships are going to be filled. It's going to start with the top 1,000 Mythic Rank Challengers. And then they are going to play in the Mythic Championship qualifier weekend on Arena. The top 16 players on day 2 of that championship weekend will qualify for the MTG Arena Mythic Championships, along with the entire Magic Pro League. So that's 32 players, plus the 16. And then it looks like there's going to be prior performance invites. So that looks like it's going to be limited. Was it 32 players in the Pro League, right?
I believe so, yeah. So it's 32 plus the 16, which leaves another 4 slots. Does that sound right?
Yes. So another 4 slots.
For prior performance. So basically they're looking at previous championship winners. So like Autumn would get a slot.
Now it does say here that the top 4 placing non-Pro League players in each MTG Arena Mythic Championship will be invited to the next Arena Mythic Championship. Right? It doesn't say we'll be invited to the paper one, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
But it does say that for the first such event, Mythic Championship 3, those 4 slots, those are the 4 slots we're talking about, will go to the 3 winners of Pro Tour 25th Anniversary, Alan Wu, Ben Hull, Gregory Orange, and Andrew Ellenbogen, the winner of Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica. So those are the 4, but it looks like, so after that, in Mythic Championship 3, the top 4 players who aren't Pro League go over to the next one automatically.
Okay. So that essentially what we really want to look at, because I don't think there are a lot of Magic Pro League players listening to our podcast, or if they are, they're skipping this part because
we are the premier source for Magic strategy for the Magic Pro League.
Well, I know that, but they could skip this part because they're already qualified.
Only.
Essentially, for us regular Joes to qualify,
no doubt,
you want to, if you're going to qualify via Arena, you need to be in the top 1,000 Mythic rank. And that's constructed or limited. You can be either one.
Is it really?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, it's.
I think so. Yeah, and it's like, how does that work?
That qualifies. So that's. I don't know if they're just looking at the top 1,000 in either one, so that's 2,000 players, or if you're just the top 1,000, top 500 of each. It might say it somewhere in this article. I'm not going to worry about it right now, but you need to be Mythic ranked and you need to be in the top 1,000. And that qualifies you for a qualifier weekend. That weekend you perform in the top 16, or you get to the top 16. That gets you to the Mythic Championship. So, that's how you qualify via Arena.
But how does it top 1,000 constructed or limited? So is that 2,000 players?
That's a good question. that's kind of what I'm saying.
That's really confusing because it still just says 1,000 players feed in. Huh.
All right. Well, we have one more topic. I think if you want to get details on this, at least details as much as we can sort of understand. We'll include a link in the show notes. Lastly, they did release a trailer, like a teaser trailer for War of the Spark, which is the next set, hashtag MTG War. And the trailer showed a ton of planeswalkers kind of in stained glass on the outside of what looked like maybe a church in Ravnica, some sort of tower. They zoom in, and there's a chandelier with a whole bunch of lit candles, and all of them get blown out but one, and the smoke forms the shape of Bolus's horns. So there's, it's a pretty cool trailer. In terms of Magic trailers, I really haven't seen a trailer that looked this cool before. And I think there's some speculation about what this means. Of course, everybody's trying to figure out what is this going to mean for the set. It's called War of the Spark, so it obviously has a very heavy Planeswalker theme.
Right.
And I had this, before seeing this trailer, I wanted to talk a little bit about Planeswalker design and just kind of the fact that it's gotten very formulaic and stale in a lot of ways. You usually get a Planeswalker who has a +1. It's some sort of card advantage ability. You either draw a card or look at the top, X cards and grab a card. Somehow you're getting a card off of their +1 ability or +2. -1 usually is some sort of protection, whether it's, kill a creature or create a blocker, something like that. And then a -X ultimate ability. That's the formula. And it's kind of gotten stale. I mean, we've had Planeswalkers now for almost 12 years. 2007, Lorwyn was the first set. So, it's going on 12 years of Planeswalker design, and there have been some unique ones, of course, but it's sort of boiled down to this formula that's gotten a little bit boring. And I think Wizards realizes this. They're trying to branch out. You have these Planeswalkers like Kaya and Domri in the latest set that are sort of showing that they can be a little more niche in their design, and and maybe that only earns them an appearance in the sideboard of a deck, and not really a build around me kind of card. And maybe that's what they want for Planeswalkers, but I suspect that Wizards wants to do something else with Planeswalkers, and my feeling is that Wizards may either do away with Planeswalkers, or not necessarily entirely forever, but somehow in the storyline make it so that Planeswalkers don't exist for a few years, and make them a lot more special when they return. Because how exciting would it be in 4 years for them to say, hey, guess what? Planeswalkers are back, somehow, and everybody would be going crazy for it. But first you got to take that away. I think that's something that I could see them doing. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying I wouldn't be surprised if they did. And another prediction I've seen is the possibility that this set has every Planeswalker in it. So whether that means, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. It could be a set that's full of 40 Planeswalkers and still end Planeswalkers there, go out with a bang.
Please don't let this set be standard legal if it's true.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. Planeswalkers have always been mythic as long as mythic has been an option. Now, again, Lorwyn, they were rare, but there was no mythic rare in Lorwyn. So does that mean we're going to get uncommon and common planeswalkers that, I don't know. They could really stretch their legs with designing planeswalkers if they're going to do that. And maybe that's where they're going. But I'm just curious to see what they end up doing. And I'm really excited to see how...
A one-drop planeswalker with 1 loyalty and then like 2 abilities that are both -1.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, right? And maybe that just kind of is like, maybe it's a red planeswalker and it's like -1 destroy target artifact or -1 do 2 damage to any target. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, kind of cool, right? Like maybe that costs 2 mana. I don't know. But I'm just thinking that you get this sort of effect that's like one of those seals that have, the seal of Primordium, seal of whatever. Kind of like a card that sits on board and allows you to use it when you need it. But can still be attacked, I guess, and still, I don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of possibilities they could really go with. But I guess what I'm getting at is I think the set is going to be really, really exciting beyond, oh, wow, we're in Ravnica. Guess what? Multicolor. Like, that's exciting, but that's not exciting. Like, this seems like it might be really big.
I've seen the bare minimum of like promotional art and things for War of the Spark, but the name alone and the art that I've seen does give it like that kind of Dominaria nostalgia feel. And if it winds up being a benchmark moment for planeswalkers one way or another, it could be really cool, I'm excited that we are a podcast at a time when a set called War of the Spark is coming out. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm like, that's going to be cool. And that's going to be fun to talk about as those cards start getting spoiled. And as we start getting information, we're here for it. And we are here for it too.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So I guess let's wrap it up. If you want to hear our opinion on the Nexus banning on Arena in Best of One, you'll have to check out our latest little thing on our feed, Yo, which is kind of an idea that Joe had, and we are going to try out. They're going to be just very short episodes released whenever we feel the desire to release them. They're going to be separate from our normal episodes. They're going to be called Yo and the date and the topic. So in this case, it's like it's Yo February 14th, I think it was. Nexus banned on Arena in Best of One. So we talk about it for about 10 minutes. And that's it. So we're going to try that out. And if you haven't heard it already, check it out. Keep an eye out this week for this impending Modern announcement, a new product that I think people are expecting. And I'm expecting big things. I guess I'm setting myself up for disappointment if it's something stupid. But maybe we'll have an episode of Yo about that. So we'll see.
Yeah. I like it because we're doing this every other week. We're not doing this weekly, so we can't really keep completely current with things that are going on. And there are some things that like it really sucks to wait 2 weeks to talk about.
Exactly.
So having those helps bridge the gap, and it gives us something, for that gap.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I think is nice.
Yep.
And it was fun doing the first one, so we'll definitely do more of them because it was. I felt like it was a great use of our time and talents.
Yes, it worked out really well. So I'm happy with the first episode. We're going to try to keep doing more like that. So we have a new logo, which I'm excited about.
It's beautiful, Joey. You did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
It is freaking cool.
So check out, I guess, our album art if you're, you'll see it on our Twitter and our Facebook and things like that. So follow us there. If you want to keep in touch, we're always open to hearing some feedback or conversation.
But only positive feedback.
Yeah.
Any negative feedback and you get auto blocked. No, I'm just kidding. But
all right. So I already
outlined the places where you get auto blocked with us earlier in the episode. So just don't be those things.
So anything else you wanted to add, Joe?
Yeah, I want to interrupt you again before you try to sign off.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not.
No, you did it.
Oh, I just did it.
Was. Very good. All right. Until next time, we're YMTG Taps.
Make them have it.
We are